Folks, I'm sure y'all have heard about 50% of Xbox staff getting cut, and the new skate looking more like the Sims, and all kinds of negative stuff. Lately, in the gaming industry, especially the more expensive games, and frankly, I've agreed for a while, and even more now so than maybe ever before, that the AAA gaming industry at least needs to crash. It's always good when there are indie games that are successful and pretty much are universally acclaimed and all that, but in terms of the AAA games, it seems like anymore there isn't a single AAA game out there whose main goal isn't to make money. They're all out there just for the money, and if it happens to be a good game, if it happens to appease the fans, then so be it, but that ain't the goal of any of them, which, in my opinion, pretty much the entire gaming industry is looking extremely short term with this. Another short term thing is it's looking almost guaranteed that the average just new game price is going to go to $80 for real cotton picking quick when it seems like it was barely even 70 for long and all. 70, in my opinion, is pushing it for paying for one game, and 80, yeah, not so much. And of course, there's still the rumors like GTA 6 will be $100 and stuff like that. Unless they can guarantee a new game will be worked on for a really cotton picking long time and will not need microtransactions in order to be successful at the game, like at most they're just aesthetic, then I'm not going to pay $80 for a game anytime soon. I'm not going to put an exact date on it or anything, but I would say anytime soon. I haven't paid it for anything gaming whatsoever since like late 2023, I think, at this point. So there's that to consider as well. And honestly, I don't see myself getting a new paid game for a while. Instead, of course, the Evo is still kind of in the pipeline. GTA 6, I mean, frankly, there's going to be so much content of just watching people play it for tens, if not hundreds of hours if I really want to. That will occupy my time at least for a few months of just watching others do stuff with it, and it's pretty much what I'm interested in, the AAA stuff. I mean, in terms of more indie and all that. Wreckfest 2, I don't think you'd call it outright AAA. Racing Bros 2, stuff like that. So, yeah, and I mean, I've argued with myself for probably 2 or 3 years of making a video like this, and I know a whole heck of a heap of people already have, but I can give somewhat of a new input in, or at least a different input into it, is because I'm to the point to where no matter of how good the gaming industry was actually doing, right now I still wouldn't really have the money to put all that much into it. And as of now, of how terrible the gaming industry is, there's barely even anything that would even remotely consider putting money into. I mean, like I said, if I get an extremely good trade value to get a PS5, I would consider that, of like trading the PS4 and the Xbox Series S, which it's looking actually kind of good on that the Series S prices are going up for me particularly, but that's another AAA gaming failure, is how in any way, shape, or form is it going to benefit Xbox or Microsoft when they've just laid off 50% of their staff and yet they're raising the prices of the Xbox Series consoles that they're never going to make another Xbox? If they're never going to make another Xbox, how could they possibly even make a claim that their current one is worth raising the price of? I get that it's the general gaming practice that the consoles don't particularly make the money. It's more about the games, and especially now the macro more like, or micro more like macro transactions. I get that, but still, that's the stupidity on all fronts, in a lot of ways, Microsoft deserves to fail. I mean, there's obviously my specific thing with the Xbox Live being stupid and all that. I had to pay more Xbox Live points to specifically get a version that didn't need a credit card, and then lo and behold, they still said that I needed a credit card, so they outright lied to my face and did nothing whatsoever to fix it. So that was the final straw, unless they did happen to fix it down the line, which they never did over a year now, and they haven't. Of worrying about the points, so at this point, the only time that I would even bother with Xbox would be outright buying a game, and I would not even bother with the Microsoft point system ever again because they fucked me over with that before. And well, that's the one that's considered not enough money. Like, that's the company that's considered failing. They took all this into consumers, and there's my specific example, and yet they're quote unquote failing. It seems like the general industry standard reason given for whatever company it may be, and especially with Microsoft, is that they hired too many employees over COVID. You know what, folks? Just look at what you played before COVID and after. Did you really see any true improvements of your gaming experience before to after? Whether that's buying the new games or the updates added to the games that you're currently playing, the online servers, because with PlayStation, Xbox, you have to pay to actually play online. Did you truly see any improvements to any of that on average after they hired all these employees? I certainly did not. For the main stuff that I play, Gran Turismo 7 was a slap in the face. I've discussed that before, and it was one of those where they alienated the core fan base. That never goes well, and many others discussed that before. And then stuff that I used to play a whole heck of a heap, I quit playing because it just got to the point of where it was microtransactions, stuff like GTA 5 and all that, and then obviously my specific example with the PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live and all of that, and that was mainly what I played because, again, it's not like I could put tons of money into playing new stuff either. And then obviously, when that Microsoft Live points are still working, playing Forza Motorsport, that was underwhelming in pretty much every way there was, and apparently that one's not even going to get a continuation. I don't think anything's outright confirmed, but it seems like, giving of what cuts happened to individual companies and such, there will not be a new Forza Motorsport. Whether that would be continuing on the number trend of the previous years or continuing on this new one, whatever it may be, there ain't going to be a new one from what it's looking like. So, in all this hiring because of COVID or whatever, they managed to kill one of the most successful franchises for the entire Microsoft, Xbox, any of that. There's no excuse for that. And the sad part about it is there were individual things that were good about Motorsport. It had a whole heck of a heap of cars. It actually had a lot of accessibility options for those that were more disabled or had difficulties playing, whether it's aged, really old, you can even say really young on that too, whatever it may be. So that was nice as well. And they were still having a decent amount of content, like with that new Japanese strike added and stuff like that. So there are individual things that's good about the game. So then it goes into argument if it sucks for individual developers for when the layoffs happen. But I mean, the way that I see with that too is you can't really put a blanket term on there, in my opinion, to say it sucks for all the developers. When straightforward, the excuse that the companies are given is they hired too many developers over the COVID cycle, then how then can the consumer say it sucks that all the developers that got cut? It's straightforward with that. You can't have both. And I'll say it straightforward. There's obvious things with a lot of the games that I have experience with in which the developers failed upon. One of the most straightforward examples is in Gran Turismo Sport. When you raced in sport mode, there was a sportsman separating up and down arrow that was not exactly accurate, but it was at least a general gauge of if you did something terribly wrong, it would be accurate. And if you were doing things that were definitely right, usually that just meant racing alone, it was accurate. But even before GT7 released, they took that out, and it wasn't to fix it or anything like that. They took that out permanent. They outright got rid of a feature that was integral in to teach players how to race. Again, it wasn't perfect. Sometimes it did teach the wrong things, but it was definitely better to have it than to not. I genuinely don't know of anyone whatsoever that said that it's a good decision that it's not there anymore. A lot of people don't care. I'd even say the majority of that they don't care. But I don't know of anyone that outright says it's a good decision either. And while that's a straightforward, specific example, there's a lot of miscellaneous stuff that can go to specific examples or more general, in which whether it's the games that I play or like the most popular in the world, have been shown of a very much downward trend in quality. Probably the most straightforward trend is the macro transactions. They've turned micro to macro, as I said when GT7 came out, and I'm sticking with that. The macro transactions, and that's true of whatever part of gaming you look at, really. Even some of the indie games are starting to fall into that trap as well. But I mean, look at the newest AAA game that people are talking about now. Is Skate, not 4. It's probably for the best that they're not ending up calling it Skate 4, because it's basically The Sims mixed with Fortnite mixed with a little bit of Skate in there. AKA two very much money-hungry franchises mixed with just enough Skate to where you can get the influencers that supposedly are said to be able to review the game how they want, to so far only say nice stuff about the game. For those that are in the beta testing, they're not allowed to say specifics of their own experiences with the beta testing, so wink wink nudge nudge with that. So I won't say any specifics about that. I'm sure you get where I'm going with that. This is not sponsored by EA, I'll put that in there too. But for those that are sponsored by EA, that's public information, so we can talk about that. In general, with all of them, none of them have made a whole video about negative stuff, and barely any of them have mentioned anything that's even remotely negative about the game that outright is getting universally panned on whatever type of discussion it is. Skateboarding type discussion, just general gaming type discussion, specifically about the old skate game type discussion. Really about the only positive people are saying is that the actual physics themselves feel good, but I mean, it felt good in Skate 1 for the skateboarding physics. When they got that right going on 20 years ago, yeah, it had better be good. Now, so that ain't exactly the dangest look of things. And it's EA. We kind of all know that EA is very much microtransaction heavy, and I made the video quite a while ago as if they're truly evil. But compared to the industry standards, again, I kind of stand by that video. I don't really know if I call them outright evil. They're just as money hungry and greedy as any other AAA gaming industry company out there. Is greed necessarily always evil? It's hard to say, because if they're putting some of that money back into the games, then so be it. But that's part of why a lot of the AAA games are failing, too, is because it's not like even if they're doing all these macrotransactions at the time, that they're seeing much actually put back into the games either. Theoretically, if after hiring a whole heck of a heap new developers and stuff over COVID and having all these macrotransactions, then the companies would then have money to put them back into the game. Again, y'all can take your own individual instances with that. Truly think of, have you noticed the games that you have been playing improve a steady amount throughout time because of what was added to the game? Probably the best example in terms of pure improvement, at least of what I've played, is Gran Turismo 7. And with that, one of, if not the core feature of the game, the online sport mode racing, is still downright terrible. It seems like Polyphony Digital has given up trying to fix the penalty system of all the types of penalties. The hitting the wall penalties, the contact with other car penalties, the ghosting penalty system, the track limits penalty system, all of it. I've discussed that, many others have in the past. With that, and that's arguably the core feature of the game. That's ultimately what they end up featuring on, like, the official PlayStation YouTube channel and stuff like that, of the best, making it to the events and such like that. Yeah, we still get some updates that have cars, but I mean, even of that are very much weird choices. Pretty much now, for as many updates back as I can think, we've gotten at least one weird car per update that literally no one asked for. And it's not even the newest version of the vehicle either, because at best, it takes 6 months to make a new car for GT7, and they're wasting it on the old models of vehicles that nobody wanted. Anyway, so then for what money they are putting back into games are used for stuff that people aren't particularly wanting when they're outright neglecting stuff that's a need. That ain't the best look, and really GT7 is the best example of what I've played of stuff being added. When GT7 is the best example of it, and it's still quite bad, that ain't particularly the dandiest. And, I mean, obviously, too, some clips of yearly sports games, mainly NBA 2K, and yeah, technically there's always post-launch support. With them, throughout the year, they are new till the next year, and the next one comes out, there's a whole heck of a heap of post-launch support, but all that's just meant to make even more money. All that post-launch support is just to coax people into buying the microtransactions. With every type of yearly sports games, their goal is to get people to spend thousands, if not tens of thousands, of real-world dollars on the game. We're to the point now where we probably have hundreds of people per year spending tens of thousands of dollars each. Probably tens of thousands of people spending thousands of dollars each. I don't even want to think, it might even be to the millions of people spending double the amount the game is worth, like you buy the game for the full price and then spend at least that much, if not more, on the microtransactions as well, and then that then becomes obsolete the next year. So it happens every cotton picking year, and it has for a while. That's why generally the clips that you see of the yearly sports games, which is mainly NBA 2K, is either me playing in modes that are not pay to win, or showing how I can grind without spending money in the ones that are, and exploiting the system, things like that. Not once have I ever showed, and I've obviously never paid real more money for it, but I've never even showed using the in-game currency that you can earn, opening packs of that. Even of like the MT that you can earn in the My Team mode, I've never showed a video of opening packs like using that. One, because it's inefficient. On average, you're gonna do better just getting it from the auction house than packs for probably any game out there, not just NBA 2K. And two, because in my opinion, that's promoting gambling. And the sad part about it is this is even going beyond the yearly sports games now. That's what's going on in Skate. From what it looks like as of now, the game ain't out yet. I've not spent a cent of money on it. Any version. Again, I ain't sponsored by EA. And nor will I spend a cent on any version of it, even when it's completely out, and even if they keep their promise to have years and years of content with it. The only way that you can actually get aesthetics in the game is a randomizer. You do not pick exactly what you want at any point. It's completely random. Emphasis on the dom. Maybe down the line they fix it, but of what we're seeing right now, it ain't. So when this is even starting to trickle into the games as a service type thing and not just a yearly type of games, that ain't the Danish look. Like, at least as what's macrotransaction heavy as something like Grand Theft Auto has gotten, you can still pick what you want. You can buy the exact thing for way much more in-game money than it ever should be, but still. When we're getting to the point where it's literally random, emphasis on the dumb of what you get, when you actually pay real world money to then get it, that's beyond messed up. I can't really think of much positive of the AAA games compared to years past. I mean, some people even make the argument that on average, of just all the AAA games combined, like now to around about 5 or so years ago, that even on average, the graphics are worse. Not really going to say for that. I mean, I'm still playing on a 1080p TV with the newest console being the Xbox Series S, so I'm not the one to judge on that one. But when even something like graphics are arguably going backwards on average, that certainly ain't the best look. But overall, kind of to circle it back to the beginning, really think about it. Whatever it is of the more expensive type games that you played, the ones that have the big development budgets, I guess you can define AAA of how you want it, whether you look at it of how many developers there are, what the development budget is, what studio makes it, however you want to consider it. I'm not going to give an exact example of that. But for those type of games throughout the years, have you actually seen a steady improvement, especially since after what the industry describes as the failing point being during COVID, hiring too many people? I personally haven't. About the best case scenario is Gran Turismo 7, and as I've said, I would rate GT7 about a 5 out of 10 for a modern racing game. And about a 2 out of 10 for just in the Gran Turismo franchise as a whole, because mainly just a slap in the face to the franchise as a whole, because they offer so much stuff that they act like they're going to have that's harkening back to the past, but really it's just to make more money. And that can be said pretty much of any and all of the big AAA franchises nowadays, too. But in the best case scenario, at least of what I've played, is about a 5 out of 10 in a genre of gaming that ain't exactly looking the dandiest right now. Well, I'd say it's a bit of trouble. Now, what do I think that a crash would actually do to benefit stuff? For one, the $80 and what it's looking like is going to happen. It's pretty much a guarantee. For a new game is stupid. Why would anyone want to pay more money for a worse experience? Like I said, you can leave it in the comments of individual examples where it truly has improved, but I don't really know of anyone that's saying that on average it was just a general experience that their AAA gaming experience has improved in the last 5 years. So then why would the price go up? Of course, you can say of individual countries of like how their economy is going and stuff like that. But the way that I see it is straightforward. No matter how an individual country's economy is going, let's say if a game is twice as cheap, but it sells 2.5 times more in that region, then it makes sense for it to be cheaper. Especially when it's cheaper too, that might entice more people to buy the microtransactions because they spent less money to begin with. So to me, that seems like a win-win. If a game's going to sell more copies for cheaper to then cover that cost, that's the way to go. And you might be saying is, oh, what proof do you have of that? The consoles themselves. That's the way that gaming has done it with consoles for many generations. I think at least since like the PS2 generation, is they have the console itself, not where the money the company's made on, it's of the other things. And now we have this whole new thing that didn't exist back then, being the microtransactions. Especially now where far less people are getting the physical type game. So there's even less of that cost to consider. The cost of actually the physical aspects of the disc and the case and stuff, the shipping of it, all that no longer is nearly as much of a factor from less people getting it. If they went by how they actually did the consoles, then the games would go by that as well, and I would argue even more so, because the console is pretty much a one-time, at max, two-time, because you might get the mid-generation upgrade. I'm probably never going to do that, but some people do. So at max, a two-time purchase per console generation, Well, a game, people probably, if they prefer, would like to have hundreds per console. So people put a genuine thought of something that they're going to get one or two times in a 6 or 7 year span. But when people have to think about it when they're paying $80 per game, and that happens a whole heck of a heap of times, they're going to get burnt out on it. When they don't have to think about it nearly as much when the games are quite a bit cheaper, they're going to be happier and want to get more. Also, you can argue as well as if the games are cheaper, then it probably won't be as much of a burden on the company to produce as much in the long term. Make the product work at the beginning, always and forever. Don't release a glitchy, unfinished product. But it probably won't be as hard on the developers to keep on releasing a bunch of stuff down the line, too, because if the game is cheaper, then maybe the expectations will be a bit lower. So maybe it won't be as much of a burden on the developers, which theoretically are having to be cut right now, and in some cases actually are. In reality, that's probably just a transition to AI, but that's sort of a different type of video. And it would benefit the players because it would be a lot less money they have to spend. There you go. That seems like a win-win. I think that would be the most straightforward thing of what the crash would cause is just the price of individual games going down. Maybe it would cause the macrotransaction to go down as well, but in a lot of cases, I feel like that's actually going to have to be government intervention. Like these yearly sports games that make it to where it's pretty much pay to win, and you open a pack with reward money that gets you random things. Yeah, that's gambling. And when the game is rated E, at max like E10, that ain't the handiest look either. Now, granted, if they just went straight forward and these games are rated teen, if not mature, and then lo and behold, it's one of those things that we saw since the 90s is having that mature rating on games, if anything, just makes kids want to play it more, and then the sales go up, then so be it. Marketing genius, whatever, the mature rated NBA 2K26 when it comes out or whatever ends up more successful, so be it. And then the mature games, yeah, sure, have that type of gambling, whatever, as long as it's considered mature, and then maybe they could even make gameplay around it, have the players actually trash talking each other, have the story mode be more realistic in terms of any of that, the choice to use performance enhancers or not, people around you using drugs, manipulating money, stock market, all that sort of stuff too, then so be it. I'm not actually so confident that if it were to actually move to mature rating for those yearly type sports games that it would actually hurt them. But in my opinion, at least that should be something that should be done. It's not really going to deter anyone, but at least there would be effort put in there, and something tangible would be different there at least. So that would be something too. But again, that's what I mean. I think a lot of the government would have to enforce stuff like those type of macrotransactions. But in terms of macrotransactions like what Fortnite has and stuff like that, then, I mean, all in all, I say whatever for stuff like that. If it's purely just aesthetic, it's not that big of a deal when the game is based around it. But when it's something like Skate, when there's been this core franchise for three iterations before that have existed for almost 20 years, and then they completely remake the whole thing in a way that nobody asked for, that ain't the Danish. That needs to crash. So maybe, just maybe, there'd be a lot less of that. Purposely remaking a game around the macrotransactions. If it's a completely new series, and that's the point of it, then so be it. But something like Gran Turismo 7, where still to this day, Kaz said that you could play the game however you wanted, and you wouldn't have to worry about doing the same few races over and over, grinding. He quite literally lies about that. Even still not lied. It's lies. Even still to this day, there's like 3 races in the entire game that you can do that get the max amount of money. Kaz literally lied about that. And again, Gran Turismo 7 is probably the best example of stuff being added both once for free. Yeah, that ain't the best look. And then Skate, like I said, looking like a mix of Fortnite and The Sims when nobody asked for that. Yeah, that stuff needs to be cracked. Don't make your established franchise be based around microtransactions. Make your established franchise be a continuation of it, or if it wants to go the Forza route, do it correctly and, build it from the ground up, whatever, but then actually do that as well. Don't just lie about that. That can kind of go for any and all areas of gaming. Is don't ever just outright lie to your core fan base. That's any time. But I'd even argue that's going on more now than ever, too. So those are two things I feel like a crash could definitely help with. Is the prices of games on average to go down, and then the actual ways in which the games are made and their core elements to improve and go back to normal as well. This should not be the norm, and the sad part is more and more people are accepting it as is. Maybe the people are still giving bad reviews, and on average, it still seems to be the case. But when people are still buying the game, and especially the microtransactions along with them, it doesn't really matter what reviews they give. What matters is what they do with their wallets. The only way we're really going to cause this crash is to fight it with our wallets. At this point, I feel like that should be fairly obvious, and frankly, to the people who are still watching this video at this point, it probably is. But realistically, we're going to have to be the cause of the crash, I'd say. It's nice that it seems like some companies are starting to be held kind of accountable. Like Xbox having to get rid of 50% of the staff. But is that actually going to improve anything for them? We'll wait to see, but as of now, it certainly doesn't look like anything is. Again, maybe there'll be a move to AI, and that's kind of a whole different video, but for now, it's probably going to have to be mainly us doing it. Of course, a lot of companies have shot themselves in the foot, like look at Xbox, but we're probably going to have to do a bit of the nudging in the right direction as well. Obviously, it sucks when you have to kind of force the industry to, in some ways, fail. But I mean, you can look at it of a real life example, is that someone that gets outright too greedy and can't even really accept reality for what it is, well, sometimes they kind of need that crash. Sometimes they kind of need that rock bottom moment to realize that they need to change their ways, or else that's going to be completely it for them. It's best that Xbox is having this rock bottom moment right now, so then that way, hopefully, not saying they will, but hopefully, they've changed their ways, so it's not completely it for them. I'd rather Xbox still exist than not at all, but it's terrible the state in which they're existing in currently. I'd rather there be a skate than not at all, but it's terrible the way in which they're doing the graphical and gameplay elements of it. I'd rather there be the Gran Turismo franchise than not at all, but I'd rather not the games be based around microtransactions to the point of the literal main person involved with the game to this day is still lying about how the game is actually played. I'd rather it not be this way, but the only way, a lot of times, for that to change is us to change it. The only way I'm going to get Gran Turismo 8 on launch is if Polyphony Digital outright says they're going to fix stuff like the online penalty system and stuff like that. That doesn't even mean they have to be successful with it. Fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me type of thing. At this point, they haven't even said once that they're going to fix it, so that truly would be a fool me once thing if they trick me there, but that's just my own opinion on that. You can take your own opinion with that as you may. That's just my personal thing with that. The only way that I would consider getting a PS5 is if I can get a really good trade-in on the other stuff. The only way that I would ever consider paying $80+ for a game is if they can have, or at least for a long time, consider paying $80+ for a game if they can promise a stable launch and not needing to pay to win. Again, I might not be the exact example of like the average gamer or anything like that. I get that I don't probably have as much money to put into gaming as the average person does, but still, no matter the realm of it, I feel like it still rings true that on average, if AAA games were to crash, it would help the industry in the long term. As of now, as circling back to the beginning, these companies are looking for short-term games they're in this greedy state in which they need to see rock bottom in order to see the error in their ways and not keep on looking for these short-term games, or else there's not going to be a long-term for them. They're going to fail and outright close in the long term, and I would rather a lot of these companies still exist than not at all, but they keep on doing what they're doing. They're not going to exist whatsoever in the long term, and really about the only way we can consider that to happen is for there to be a crash and for them to hit rock bottom in the short term. Of course, in a lot of ways, it ain't exactly yeehaw. There's a lot of negatives to it, and it's straightforward. A lot of people probably ain't going to be playing as many games if they want to go this route to cause the crash. But there's still some indie games out there that are good, and there's still the hope that in the long term, things are even better. So all in all, of looking at the long term, I would still most certainly consider that a yeehaw if it works.